Hello and welcome to Meet the Candidates. I'm sitting down with our state Senate candidate, Mike Berry. Mike, thanks for joining the show.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, can you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Sure, so I'm from Walpole. Like most people, I think, in the Bristol-Norfolk district, have roots in Boston. I grew up in Roslindale, West Roxbury line. Moved out to Walpole with my parents when I was 10. My mother is from Ireland. She's an Irish immigrant. My father's a Vietnam veteran from South Boston. So a lot of Boston roots, but I've lived in Walpole since probably 92 or 93. Grew up in Walpole, went to Walpole schools and maintain a home there now. And I had done some previous service on the school committee, Board of Selectmen. And right now, as far as community activity, I coach youth football. And that keeps me busy during the fall. So I'm really excited to be in the race.
Yeah, I don't know if the people of Medfield are going to be excited that I say this, but Walpole's got a great football program.
Walpole has a great football program, and I can also tell you, Coach Ornberg at the high school, I believe Eric Ornberg is the head coach here. He was actually my freshman football coach in Walpole. I believe he's a guidance counselor also at Medfield High. So Medfield has a Walpole guy, but I know now he's Medfield through and through. He's been doing great things in the community, and he was a great mentor to me in my freshman year. So Medfield's lucky to have him.
Yeah, a lot of people talk good things about him.
Yeah,
so
he's
that's
a good
good
guy. He's a good guy.
So what's your education? Where have you gone from there?
Sure. So I got my bachelor's degree in political science and English at Merrimack College up in Andover, North Andover. I got a master's in public administration from Bridgewater State University. It was Bridgewater State College when I was there, but now it's a university, which is great. So that's my background in terms of education. Education, actually, I can say while we're on it, is an important subject to me. So my fiance Heather is a public school kindergarten teacher. My older sister Christina is a Spanish teacher at Arlington High School, and my younger sister Andrea is a Catholic school teacher at Sacred Heart Elementary in Roslindale.
So you have a wide range of teaching.
Yeah, that's my education cabinet, as I've been joking on the campaign trail. So I have a lot of education advisors.
And obviously Heather's with us today. We were talking before this. I was saying to her, people forget, while you're on the trail and stuff, that you have a life outside of this. You're actually planning your wedding and everything going on.
Yeah, I'm actually planning a wedding, which most people, when they hear about it, I think it kind of blows their socks off. But I think it's a testament to, I think, my commitment to the district and to this race. We've been taking it day by day. One day might be a little bit campaign heavy. The next day, we're worrying about invitations and what the font is going to look like. And we're going from a campaign event to a tasting to make sure that the meal we serve for our guests is going to be up to par. So it's keeping us busy. She's been a great sport, my #1 supporter, and really my #1 advisor who listens to me at the end of each day to talk about how the campaign went, and then I listen to her and she can update me on where things are going with the wedding. So we're doing, I think, the best we can. It's a great experience for both of us, and she's being a real trooper. But I've always been a busy guy, and I don't think I've ever been this busy, but I think I'm hanging in there. So.
And hopefully things get busier for you if all goes well.
Hopefully, yeah, that's the plan. So I think this is good preparation.
Right,
it's certainly good preparation for life in the state Senate. So.
Speaking of the state Senate, obviously it's why we're here. I've asked this question 2 times now, so you're the 3rd interview that we've done, and I've gotten 2 separate answers, and I'm sure a 3rd new answer will come. What to you does a state senator do?
State senator to me is really an advocate for the people you represent. There's 2 different components to the job. There's being up at the State House and actually voting on legislation and participating in the legislative process. The rest of the job is really working with the cities and towns in your district, working with the nonprofits to find out how you as a state senator can be most effective and most useful to further their mission and further their cause. So I think that's probably the most important job. I think a lot of people don't stress it enough, but the legislative process part is important. There's no more of an important responsibility than voting on the state budget and a lot of important pieces of legislation. But beyond it, you have to really get to know your community. You need to be spending, frankly, in my opinion, more time in your district than you do on Beacon Hill, because the district is what is going to guide you. Meeting with the town manager, meeting with your boards of selectmen, your superintendent, meeting with your public works director. Find out what grants your communities are applying for that maybe you can be supportive of. Find out what initiatives the school district is thinking of that maybe there might be some state funds available. So again, you have to be advocating, but if you're not out there, burning a hole in your shoes, then you're not doing your job. So.
Absolutely, and you guys have a big district too. It's a wide district.
Yeah, it runs north and south. Medfield being the northernmost part, goes to Walpole, half of Sharon, Foxborough, Mansfield, Norton, just a little more than half of Attleboro, Seekonk, and Rehoboth. So it's pretty expansive. But Senator Timilty and Senator Joanne Sprague, before him, both did a great job representing the district. You really get an interesting cross-section of communities. You have down in Seekonk and Rehoboth, a lot of farming communities. I've gone to a few farmers markets and met a lot of working class families that are really thriving on their businesses and what they're able to do, and the local farmers markets that are being done throughout the area is really giving them an additional outlet to have their product. Then you come up north, Foxborough and Mansfield and Norton. You have a lot of entertainment. You have obviously Gillette Stadium, you have the Tweeter Center, you have TPC in Norton, so it's become kind of a destination spot. And you come up towards Walpole, Medfield, and Sharon, and really just three wonderful bedroom communities that have great school systems, have very picturesque, classic New England downtowns, and they're great places to raise a family. So it'd be an honor to represent this district, but quite honestly, it'd be a lot of fun too, because you have such a wide array of communities, and I think that's what keeps the job interesting.
Absolutely. One of the interesting things about this race in particular is obviously Timilty stepping out, so the incumbent is no longer in the race, so everyone is new to the position. What experiences do you feel you have that you're bringing to the table that would help you in this position?
Sure, I almost feel, even though I haven't served in the state senate, in some ways I'm trying to convey to people that I almost feel like I have the best diversity of experience to serve in the state senate. I was elected to the school committee in the town of Walpole at age 24, to the board of selectmen at age 27, and re-elected to the board at age 30. So from a local experience, I'm the only candidate in the race that's been elected 3 times by their hometown to serve on a board or a committee. I've also worked at the State House. I worked in the House of Representatives for Ginny Capola and Representative Jay Barrows, who represent Foxborough, Mansfield, and Norton. I worked for the City of Marlborough for 3.5 years, and most recently I've worked in the Baker administration at the Department of Transportation. So I think as a local official, as a municipal employee, and now as a senior level state employee, I think I really have a pretty good understanding of what it takes to be an effective state senator. In each of those roles, I've had to work with our senators, whether it's been a Republican or Democrat. It's something that in my career, I've always been working with your local legislators, and it's an important relationship to have, and it's, I think, oftentimes where you need to check partisanship at the door, because a lot of the issues that you need to be working on are not partisan. And so I think I can go and step in the state senate on day one and really be the best advocate for the people of the district. So.
Certainly in Beacon Hill right now, I mean, bipartisanship is massively important, where
Absolutely.
Baker's there, and you have Massachusetts is obviously a very Democratic area. So the bipartisanship is huge in this area.
It's, I think a lot of people would be surprised how bipartisan the Massachusetts General Court is. I think certainly compared to the rancor that you see down in Washington, D.C., people really want to work together, and I've seen it firsthand, and it's really good. And I think I'd be going there as someone that would certainly continue the bipartisan tradition set by Senator Timilty and Senator Sprague before him, to really find out what you can do to achieve consensus. And then there are times when things become maybe a bit more partisan, but I think you can be partisan without poking someone in the eye. And that's the thing I've been trying to tell people. My campaign is about making people feel good about politics again. You can disagree without being disagreeable. You know, we hear that phrase all the time, but I think few people practice it, and I'm hoping to be someone that can actually be an example of that.
Now, what made you decide that you wanted to run? What was it that you said, all right, I'm comfortable where I'm at, but I'm going for that state Senate seat? What was it?
Sure. You know, when I was young, I had a view of politics that it was only for the wealthy, or it was only for the well-connected, or, you know, if you had a good name. And I really just had a burning interest in politics, though, when I was a kid. And I'd look up and I'd see where all the congressmen were from, and you know, they might have gone to an Ivy League school, or maybe they went to BC, and you know, they went to BC High before that, and you know, they had a certain pedigree that I felt I was never going to have. And when I first got my job up at the State House, it was because I was holding signs for someone. It was Ginny Capola at the time. She needed someone to work for, and it was through a friend of a friend. So gave me a call and says, hey, we need someone to come hold signs for a special election. And she won. She needed someone to come work for her. I was still a senior in college, but I had done an internship in college for a guy named Scott Brown. And this is before he was U.S. Senator Scott Brown. He was a state senator then. But she saw that on my resume, and she interviewed me a couple times, and I got hired. And you know, I think at that point, that was about in 2006, I thought I made it then. I mean, I was making $26,000, $27,000 a year working at the State House, and I thought, like, I've done it. You know, I've broken the glass ceiling, so to speak, in my family to really work at the State House. And again, being, my father grew up in the projects in South Boston. My mother was 14 when she came to America. Having their son to work at the State House was something that had a lot of honor and prestige to it. So it was something that even as I got older through my 20s, Walpole is gerrymandered, for lack of a better word. So it's always very difficult for someone from Walpole to run for the legislature because of the way the districts are drawn. And historically, the past two state senators have been from Walpole, and I always thought if an opportunity ever came that I might be interested in, that would be the seat. I would never have run against Jim Timilty. He's a good guy. I worked with him a lot. But that just wasn't something I was willing to take on, especially if it was someone that I agreed with on a lot of issues and someone I respected. When he left, I think it caught a number of us by surprise. Didn't really expect it. So I had to make a decision, knowing that I was getting married later this year. It was something that I really had to think over, talk to a lot of people, and ultimately I felt there was an opportunity I couldn't pass up. I feel too strongly about the issues that middle-class families care about. I feel very strongly about the upbringing that I had with my parents, and I felt this was the best way for me to serve the people and serve the community and to make a difference. And I felt I couldn't pass it up, and I knew I had to go for it.
So on the roll there, as we're on, why should people vote for you? What is it that you should, what's your pitch for people?
My pitch to folks is experience and qualifications. I think I have a record of results. I've been tested and trusted at the local level in every job that I've had, whether it's been working for a mayor of a municipality out in the Metro West, whether it's been here in Walpole, whether it's been working for people in Foxborough, Mansfield, and Norton, or working at DOT, helping Governor Baker enact some serious reforms at DOT. I want to make government work for the people, but I'm also looking to go there and shake things up a little bit. I've been talking about ethics reform. That's something I firmly believe in. I believe that our politics can be a lot better than what they are. I think there needs to be some positive changes made on Beacon Hill that will not only affect some change immediately, but hopefully last beyond us. One of the pieces of legislation that I really believe in and I think has been well received by folks is enacting a strict prohibition against sitting lawmakers from representing private clients, corporate interests before state agencies. In other words, we've had two instances over the past 2 years where sitting lawmakers have represented clients before a division of insurance. They've gotten business through county government, and the Boston Globe has done a series of investigative reports that have shown that legislators were maybe furthering their own interests instead of the working families of the district. And I think it's time we have somebody that puts the working families of the district first, and I'm the candidate that's going to do that.
That's fantastic. Now, one of my questions, I wanted to ask this later on because I wanted people to kind of hear more about you before they passed a quick judgment, is what party are you running as? Where do you fit?
Sure, I'm a Republican. I'm running in the Republican primary.
And now, why do you feel it was important to, why is it that you come out as a Republican?
I think my party doesn't define me. I think my actions and my words define me. As a Republican, I believe in smaller, less intrusive government. I believe that taxpayer money should be spent thoughtfully and wisely, but I believe it should be spent efficiently. Obviously there are certain things that we need to make expenditures on to make sure that our communities are safe, that people can get to and from work, and that we have good schools. But I think as a Republican, I believe in a government that stays out of people's lives, that stays out of people's bedrooms, and I really feel that that's important. I think we have a trend, certainly in Massachusetts, but elsewhere across the country, where government wants to have a bigger and bigger role in people's everyday lives. And I think people, as long as they're informed, people can make decisions for themselves. I think government needs to focus on what it does well. And I think that's education and public safety and transportation. And I think we should let the private sector and let working families figure out the rest. And frankly, let communities at the local level figure out some of these issues as well.
What do you think people should be looking for in their candidates when they see the names on the list and they're going to vote? What is it that they should be thinking about as they go to cast their vote this year? I
think people need to go beyond what the candidates say and to look at what they've done. And I think it's easy for candidates to go out there and to say what they think people want to hear and to come up with cliches and catchphrases. I think it's really a responsibility of the people who show up and vote to see who actually can talk the talk and walk the walk. And that's where I really, challenge people to look at my record, look at my experience, and compare it to the other candidates. And hopefully, when they meet me in person, when they shake my hand, they'll see that I'm earnest, I'm sincere, that when I say that I want to bring some reform to the state, that I can do that. When I tell them that I'm not afraid to be on the losing side of a vote, that they'll believe me when I say that I'm not looking to make a career out of politics, that they'll believe me. And I think that's the only way you can really earn people's trust, is what you say is what you have to do. And if you don't do that, then I think people need to hold you accountable. And now, obviously, if they do vote you in and you are held accountable at that point, the benchmark everyone always sets for first elected person is the first 100 days. So What do you think your first 100 days are going to be? The first 100 days for me, certainly it's going to be filing of ethics reform. That is the first piece of legislation that I have said that I will file if I am fortunate enough to be sworn in as the next state senator. I think the state Senate has outlined a number of issues that they want to tackle in the coming months. Criminal justice reform is going to be a huge component of that. Obviously, having gone through the state budget process that we just did, in which Governor Baker justifiably had to make some budget reductions to make sure that our revenues meet our spending plan. We're going to have to continue to monitor the state budget, and that might mean, several months from now we might have to revisit the budget and make some adjustments, and that's going to be a very difficult thing to do. But I think, as Governor Baker and Lieutenant Governor Polito have done, holding harmless local aid and protecting local aid. Towns like Medfield, towns like Walpole, their school districts and their communities are very dependent on local aid, and any cut in local aid is going to reverberate and actually have a visible impact on the community. So I think protecting local aid is going to be very important. And I also hope at the State House we can tackle some other important issues, health insurance, some entitlement reform. I think there's a lot of things that are coming up where the Bristol and Norfolk District is going to need a very strong voice to advocate on their behalf. Busy first 100 days. Yeah, it's going to be busy, and I think fortunately the State Senate has been keeping up a little bit more of a hectic work pace than the House of Representatives have. They've been meeting a little bit more often. They've been having a little bit more debate, which I think is great. The House is much more controlled and managed, and the state Senate, Senate President Rosenberg, who I don't agree with pretty much on any issue, but the thing that I respect about him is he's really opened up the process for senators to participate more, to file amendments, to have debate. And I think that's something that I'm really going to relish that opportunity to do that. And I think it's going to hopefully show people that they have a senator that's going to be thoughtful on the issues, but that's going to be not afraid to hold my colleagues accountable, and I'm going to expect to be held accountable as well. But I think we want to get some stuff done and move some stuff forward.
Now, obviously, I think this whole interview, you've kind of summarized this next question, but what makes you the best candidate for the state Senate?
Sure. Again, I think it's my experience. I think it's the fact that I've got a real deep history in this district. I think there's other candidates, quite frankly, that have maybe moved to the district in the past couple of years or even more recent. I've grown up here. I've planted my roots firmly. This district has shaped who I am as a person, from my football coaches, my teachers, people that I've coached with, people that I've served with on Board of Selectmen and school committee. Those are the people I'm really going to go to bat for. And so when I go to Medfield, when I go to Walpole or the other communities, I know who the people are because I've grown up in this district. And I think a lot of the people that live in this community are people just like me. They're working class families that maybe their parents came from Boston, maybe their parents came from Italy or Ireland, like my family. And I think all you're trying to do is make sure that you want to achieve the American dream, which is, I think, you want to live a good, fruitful life, and you want to make sure that your kids are able to have it a little bit better than you are. And I think as a state senator, that's going to be my goal. My goal is to make sure that as a state, we can do things to make it easier for the next generation to achieve their aspirations, to make sure that affordability doesn't get in the way of aspirations. And that's something that I really believe in. And again, I have the track record, I have the experience that has shown I've been willing to do that, and I've been an innovative thinker, and that I'm willing to work with people of different ideological persuasions to get stuff done.
All right, so now we're going to go into, we talked about how this is going to be a little more of a relaxed interview.
Sure.
People need to get to know you a little bit. So we put together some not as important questions, but just things to get to know you a little bit.
Yeah.
So the first thing is, what's your favorite food?
Favorite food is tough. I would probably have to say my favorite food group would probably be some type of barbecue. But probably one of my favorite go-to foods is probably peanut butter on English muffin. That's one of my favorites.
Nice, just something basic and simple.
I can't break away from a Thomas's English muffin with a little bit of butter and peanut butter on it. I can't break away from it. But if it was a cuisine, you can't do any better than barbecue. So,
what's your favorite sport to watch?
Definitely football.
What's your favorite sport to play?
Favorite sport to play? I really enjoyed playing baseball. I don't enjoy watching it as much as I used to when I was a kid. I really enjoyed playing baseball. I played football. That was my biggest sport. I certainly don't miss. I'm an old 34, and I think some of my football injuries sometimes make me wince a little bit as I get older. But I enjoyed playing football. There was certainly nothing like it. It was a great thrill, but there was nothing quite like being in the batter's box and the feeling of when you get a hold of one. And it was great. So I definitely miss Little League and baseball.
Do you play any instruments?
I don't. I tried. My mother was very brave, and she bought me a trumpet in the 4th grade at Fisher School, and it didn't quite take. I think we have a family video of me out in the backyard, and I was just kind of wailing on the trumpet. And the neighborhood was kind of being developed at that time, so there weren't a lot of other homes, so I didn't really tick anyone off. But I couldn't really quite get it. It's probably a regret. I think some people that play an instrument and are successful, I think usually have an inclination. I think they think differently. I really, really wish I could play an instrument. I wish I could play the piano. That'd probably be the one I wish I could learn. I'm a big Billy Joel fan and big Bruce Springsteen fan, and they've got some songs that use the piano. I just wish I could do myself. But
do you have any hidden talents?
hidden talents. I was going to ask Heather. I'm okay at impressions sometimes. I can do some good impressions, but I don't know that I'll break any out.
I was say I won't ask you to break any out. I won't put you on the spot. What's your most used social media site?
Probably Twitter.
You like to get in touch with the people that way?
I think Twitter is a good way of. It's kind of pithy. It's to the point. I think it is a little bit more comedic, which I think suits me. I can seek out the people that thrown out a one-liner or two that might just make you chuckle. Certainly for the campaign, Facebook has been tremendous. We've really been getting a great response on our Facebook site, so I'd encourage people to check that out. But if I'm talking personally, definitely Twitter.
Now give yourself a plug. What's your Facebook? How can people find you?
Sure, Berry for Senate. Berry for Senate. That's number 4, Senate, Mike Berry.
And then what's your favorite team?
Favorite team is the Patriots. Big Pats fan.
How could you not be, right?
Yeah, it's tough to really imagine anything else. I'm definitely a homer when it comes to Boston sports, but really the Patriots have just been my team to watch, and even as my favorite players drop off, I seem to find new ones. The Red Sox I still like, but for some reason I'm still upset Trot Nixon still isn't on the team. He was really my guy. I really loved watching Trot Nixon, so I think that was about 12 years ago, so that tells you probably the last time I was really engaged with the Sox. So
what has become one of my favorite questions, what's your favorite holiday?
Christmas.
What about it? Was it the gifts or what?
It's everything. It's the decorations. It's, quite honestly, I think it's, let me put it this way. One of my favorite movies is It's a Wonderful Life. And there's a bit of nostalgia to me in Christmas, and that it just maybe a little bit of mystique, a little bit of magic still with the snow and the Christmas tree, and watching young kids and their eagerness to hear about Santa Claus. But also I think it's the most selfless holiday. I enjoy buying people's family and friends gifts. I enjoy thinking about what I can do to surprise them. So I really enjoy Christmas, and it also kind of lasts a bit longer. You have Christmas Eve and Christmas Day, so you can really kind of get 2 days worth. So
and of course, right when Thanksgiving ends, Christmas starts.
Yeah, pretty much. And I do like Christmas music too.
Yeah.
I don't quite like it the day after Thanksgiving, but usually December 1st, I'm good.
Yeah, absolutely. What's the last thing you read?
Last thing I read today was probably the newspaper, probably the Herald.
Are you a consistent paper reader?
Yeah, I mostly read it on my phone now, like most people. But my father, always used to get the newspapers, and so when I was a kid, it was pretty much the sports section. And as I get older, I try and read it pretty regularly. The Sunday Globe. When I go to see my folks, they still order the Sunday Globe, and going through that. So I'm definitely a copious consumer of news. I don't get to read as many books as I used to. I'm mostly reading news and press releases and campaign papers and policy papers and legislation. So I don't get to read anything that fun anymore. So.
Well, sometimes the politics is just as fun.
Yeah, that's true. I read actually the last probably political thing I read was the marijuana legislation, which I found a lot to laugh about on that, but I guess we can talk about that another time. So.
Now, this I think is the hardest question. Describe yourself in 3 words.
So I actually tried looking at this earlier, because I said I got to come up with these, because sometimes on the spot I'm not so good. The first one I came up with is Irish. The second one I'd probably come up with, even though this is 2 words, I'd probably say self-deprecating. I think I'm a pretty self-deprecating guy. The third one, I almost wish Heather was here so she could say what she thinks. But I would say compassionate.
So Irish, self-deprecating, and compassionate.
Yeah, I'm Irish. I like to laugh at myself, and I have a great deal of empathy and really just like to help people and look out for people. So,
if you get a moment at some point and you get to get away, what's your favorite vacation spot?
I really just love going to the beach. Heather and I, that's our favorite thing to do when we can do it. Pick a beach and just go there for the day and really just kind of really soak up some sun. Don't get out on vacation as much as I used to, but we like to kind of be a little bit of beach tourists. So, maybe go up to Newburyport, Plum Island, or, go down the Cape, or, go to Plymouth, or even, the beaches in South Boston now have really been cleaned up and the water's great. So, if you're really, really pressed for time, you can go there. But I'd say the beach is probably my favorite getaway spot.
Now, I know you're used to baseball, but I'm going to toss you a softball for a second here.
Sure.
You win the election. Who's the first person you thank?
Parents. Definitely my parents. I told in my kickoff speech, I said something to the extent of the fact that I'm here running for office is a tribute to everything my parents have done for me. I wouldn't be here without my parents. My parents have shaped me as a person, as a human being. They continue to shape me as a candidate. Both my parents, my dad was a Boston school custodian. My mom was a customer service, so she actually is still working. My mom just turned 67, although she's going to, hopefully she won't see this. She lives in Walpole, so she won't see that I just said her age on TV. But my mom still works, and my father's 70. But that's the household I grew up in. Both parents working. Sometimes my father worked nights, and as my mom's coming home, he's going off to work. But my parents just did an excellent job. They tried providing my sisters and I with everything that we needed, and I couldn't have really asked for a better childhood or better parents. And everything that I am today and everything that I'm able to achieve is because of my parents' support and because of the value system that my parents instilled in me. So without question, it'd be my parents.
Anyone in the world you could have dinner with?
That's a good one. I might have to say Calvin Coolidge. And I only say that because he was characterized, and he was actually a former state senator himself. A lot of people don't know that, but he was president of the Massachusetts State Senate before he became governor. And but they called him Silent Cal because he really couldn't, he wasn't much of a talker. So I guess from a historical perspective, I'd be interested in seeing, if him and I sat at a table, whether or not, I could get anything out of him. But so I'd say him, probably Bill Belichick too. He'd have to be on there because he's another guy that doesn't really say anything, but I'm really interested to know what is going on in his head. So
you're interested in sitting down with people who don't talk back to you, huh?
Yeah, I guess. I guess.
Like looking at people.
Yeah, yeah.
And then the final question: why should people vote for you?
Because I think of what I'm bringing to the table in terms of experience, and again, in terms of a track record, and in terms of goals. I think most people would agree that Massachusetts politics is certainly a difficult endeavor, but there's a lot we can improve upon. And our politics can be better, they can be improved, but you need people that are willing to go up there and change the system. You need people that once they cross that line and they become a legislator, once they are sworn in and they are a senator or they are a representative, that they're going to do what they say they did, and they're not going to let the culture of Beacon Hill change them. And I have been telling people that I am going up there to help reform and positively change the culture on Beacon Hill. I'm not going up there to poke anyone in the eye, but I think we have some meaningful changes that we can make that will hopefully inspire more faith and more trust in government. I'm somebody that genuinely believes that that's a worthy endeavor to do that, and hopefully people will share that belief and share that goal, and hopefully they'll get behind my campaign, and I certainly welcome and need their support and would love to have them on board, and we can together take that message to the State House. So,
State Senate candidate Mike Berry, we're going to get you out of the hot seat.
Thanks a lot.
Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. I enjoyed it.
And thank you so much for watching.
This district has shaped who I am as a person, from my football coaches, my teachers, people that I've coached with, people that I've served with on Board of Selectmen and school committee, those are the people I'm really going to go to bat for. And so when I go to Medfield, when I go to Walpole or the other communities, I know who the people are because I've grown up in this district. And I think a lot of the people that live in this community are people just like me. They're working class families that maybe their parents came from Boston, maybe their parents came from Italy or Ireland like my family. And I think all you're trying to do is make sure that you want to achieve the American dream, which is, I think, you want to live a good, fruitful life, and you want to make sure that your kids are able to have it a little bit better than you are. And I think as a state senator, that's going to be my goal. My goal is to make sure that as a state, we can do things to make it easier for the next generation to achieve their aspirations, to make sure that affordability doesn't get in the way of aspirations.